October 3, 2003. The Mirage Hotel Theater. 1,500 faces staring at a stage where magic was about to become murder. The spotlights blazed down on sequined costumes and pristine white fur. But something was wrong. Something that would turn a birthday celebration into a bloodbath in 60 seconds. 400 pounds of apex predator waited in the wings. Ice blue eyes that had once looked at Roy Horn with love now held something else. Something wild, something hungry. Something that was about to remind the world what it truly meant to be a tiger. This is the story of how paradise became purgatory, how magic became murder, how a man's greatest love became his most devastating betrayal. In less than 2 minutes, the most successful magic show in Las Vegas history would become its most horrifying tragedy. Before we witness the horror, we must understand the love. Roy Horn wasn't just a magician. He was a man who believed he could speak the language of predators. Born in Germany in 1944, Roy discovered his gift as a child when he first touched a wild animal and felt something electric pass between them. "Animals don't lie to you," Roy would say, his German accent thick with emotion. "When they trust you, that trust is everything. When they love you, that love is pure." That belief would define his life and ultimately end it. His partnership with Siegfried began on a cruise ship in 1959. Roy was hiding a cheetah in his cabin. Siegfried was a struggling magician looking for something special. Together, they created magic that the world had never seen. Not just tricks, not just illusions. A genuine connection between man and beast that seemed to defy nature itself. By the 1970s, they were international stars. But it was Roy's relationship with white tigers that made them legends. These weren't circus animals performing for treats. These were 400-pound killing machines that rolled over for Roy like house cats. Tigers that seemed to genuinely love the German magician who had raised them from cubs. Roy lived with his tigers at the Jungle Palace, a $10 million estate where predators roamed free. He slept beside them, fed them by hand, treated them like his children. The bond seemed unbreakable. "Roy doesn't train the cats," Siegfried would explain. "He loves them, and they love him back." For 40 years, that love seemed real. Roy would put his head in their mouths during shows, dance with creatures that could kill him in seconds, trust them with his life night after night. The tigers responded with devotion that seemed almost human. Almost. 1990. The Mirage Hotel opened with Siegfried and Roy as its crown jewel. $57 million for a contract that made them the highest-paid entertainers in history. Their custom theater cost $28 million to build. Every night, 1,500 people paid premium prices to witness the impossible. Beyond Belief was more than a magic show. It was a religious experience. Elephants vanished into thin air. Women transformed into tigers. Men walked through walls, but the heart of every show was Roy's connection to his white tigers. The moment when predator and prey became partners in a dance that defied every law of nature. Night after night, Roy would enter the stage with Manticore, a 7-year-old white tiger he had bottle-fed as a cub. 400 pounds of muscle and fang that followed Roy's every gesture with the loyalty of a devoted pet. The audience would gasp as Roy placed his hands on the massive cat's head, hold their breath as he guided the tiger through intricate choreography. Applaud wildly as man and beast moved together like old dance partners. "People ask me if I'm ever afraid," Roy told reporters. "The answer is no. Fear would break the trust. Manticore knows my heart. He would never hurt me. We are family." Over 13 years, they performed 30,000 shows. 25 million people witnessed their magic. $45 million in annual revenue. They weren't just entertainers. They were gods of their own impossible realm. But gods can fall. And Roy Horn was about to learn that even the deepest love can't change what a tiger truly is. The White Death. Manticore was magnificent. 7 feet of pure muscle wrapped in pristine white fur. Ice blue eyes that seemed to hold intelligence beyond animal understanding. 4-inch fangs designed by millions of years of evolution for one purpose: killing. White tigers are genetic anomalies, inbred for their unusual coloring, often suffering from health problems and neurological issues. But Manticore seemed perfect, strong, beautiful, gentle, the ideal partner for Roy's magical vision. Roy had raised him from a tiny cub, bottle-fed him, slept beside him, treated him like a son. The bond between them seemed unbreakable. For 7 years, Manticore had been the star of the show, the gentle giant who proved that love could tame the wildest beast. But beneath that white fur beat the heart of an apex predator, a killing machine programmed by nature to hunt, stalk, and destroy. Tigers in the wild can leap 30 feet, bite through bone, kill prey 3 times their size. They are solitary hunters, territorial, unpredictable. Animal experts had warned Roy for years. "You can't truly tame a tiger," they said. "You can only suppress its instincts. And suppressed instincts have a way of exploding when you least expect it." Roy dismissed the warnings. He knew better. He had the bond. He had the love. He had 40 years of experience that proved the experts wrong. He was about to learn how deadly that confidence could be. By 2003, those who worked closely with Roy began noticing changes, subtle shifts that only insiders could see. Roy was 59 years old. Age was slowing his reflexes, dimming his energy, affecting his ability to maintain the intense connection that had defined his relationship with the tigers. Animal handler Chris Lawrence watched with growing concern as Roy spent less time with the cats before shows. The daily bonding sessions grew shorter. The physical contact became less frequent. The magical connection that had amazed the world for decades was slowly weakening. Roy's relationship with the tigers wasn't what it used to be, Lawrence would later reveal. But Roy wouldn't admit it. He couldn't admit it. His whole identity was built on that connection. The tigers sensed the change. Manticore became more restless during shows, less responsive to Roy's commands, more focused on the audience than on his master. Warning signs that everyone chose to ignore. The cats were getting confused, Lawrence recalled. Roy's signals weren't as clear, his presence wasn't as strong, but no one wanted to say anything. This was Roy Horn. This was the legend. Other incidents occurred that never made the papers. Near misses. Moments when the tigers didn't respond as expected. Times when Roy had to use more force than usual to control his cats. Each incident was explained away, dismissed as normal variations in animal behavior. But they weren't normal. They were warnings, red flags that something fundamental was changing in the relationship between man and beast. Signs that the magic was dying. October 3, 2003 would prove just how dead it already was. Roy Horn's 59th birthday. What should have been a celebration. The theater was sold out. VIPs filled the front rows. Cameras captured every moment. This was supposed to be a night of triumph. Backstage, Roy prepared for the show with his usual ritual. Checking on the cats, reviewing the choreography, psyching himself up for another night of impossible magic. But those who knew him best noticed something different. A tension, an uncertainty, a crack in the confidence that had carried him through thousands of performances. Manticore waited in his holding cage, 400 pounds of muscle and fang, ice blue eyes that seemed less focused than usual. The tiger that had been Roy's partner for 7 years was acting strange, restless, agitated, unpredictable. The show began at 7:30 sharp. The first 45 minutes unfolded perfectly. Impossible illusions, death-defying stunts, moments of wonder that left the audience gasping. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed magical. Then came the rapport, the segment designed to showcase Roy's special bond with his tigers. The moment that had thrilled audiences for over a decade. The climax of every performance. Roy's moment to prove that love could conquer nature itself. As Manticore was led onto the stage, something felt wrong. The cat seemed distracted, unfocused. His usual graceful movement was replaced by nervous energy. His ice blue eyes weren't locked on Roy but scanning the audience. The lights, the unfamiliar sounds of 1,500 strangers. Roy noticed but dismissed it. This was Manticore, his baby, his son, his most trusted partner. They had done this routine hundreds of times. What could possibly go wrong? Everything. Standard protocol called for Roy to walk Manticore in a large circle around the stage. Let the tiger acclimate to the environment, follow the safety procedures that had kept them alive for 13 years. But Roy was feeling confident, maybe overconfident. Instead of following protocol, Roy used his arm to steer the massive cat directly back toward his body in a tight pirouette motion, a deviation that would cost him everything. What Roy did was completely wrong. Animal handler Chris Lawrence would reveal years later. Manticore's face was right in Roy's midsection. By not following the correct procedure, it fed into confusion and rebellion. The tiger became disoriented. Instead of following his usual marks, Manticore began wandering toward the front row audience. 1,500 people with no barrier between them, and 400 pounds of confused predator. Roy realized the danger. He positioned himself between Manticore and the crowd, the only thing standing between his cat and potential mass carnage. "Down! Down!" Roy commanded, his voice carrying authority built over decades. But Manticore wasn't responding. The cat that had obeyed his every gesture was suddenly acting like what he truly was, a wild animal. Tourist Tony Cohen watched from 10 yards away as the situation deteriorated. He lost the chain around the tiger's neck and grabbed for it, but couldn't get it. With his free hand, Horn tapped Manticore on the head again and again, the sound reverberating through the theater. The tapping grew more desperate, Roy's voice more urgent. "Release! Release!" he commanded as Manticore gripped his right wrist with a massive paw. 4-inch claws pressed against human flesh with increasing pressure. For a moment, crisis seemed averted. Manticore loosened his grip. Roy began to step back. The audience continued watching what they assumed was part of the show. Then Roy stumbled. He fell backward over Manticore's leg, his sequined costume catching the lights as he tumbled. In that instant, everything changed. Manticore's predatory instincts exploded with primordial fury. The tiger that had been Roy's son became nature's perfect killing machine. 400 pounds of muscle and fang launched itself through the air. Manticore landed on Roy with crushing force, his massive jaws clamping down around the magician's neck. The sound that escaped Roy's throat wasn't human. It was the scream of prey in the jaws of a predator. 1,500 people watched in paralyzed horror as their evening of entertainment became a nightmare they would never forget. The mauling. Manticore's jaws locked around Roy's neck with hydraulic pressure. 4-inch fangs punctured the jugular vein, missing the carotid artery by millimeters. Blood poured from the wounds, soaking Roy's white costume, pooling on the stage floor. "No, no, no!" Siegfried screamed as he ran toward his partner of 44 years. But Manticore wasn't finished. The predator that had been suppressed for 7 years was fully awakened. Gripping Roy's unconscious body in his jaws like prey, the massive cat began dragging him toward the wings. The ball-fringed curtains parted as 400 pounds of tiger disappeared into darkness, carrying Roy Horn toward what everyone assumed would be his death. The audience was in complete chaos. Some screamed. Others sat in stunned silence. Many assumed it was part of the show. Surely this level of violence, this amount of blood, couldn't be real. Dancer Mike Davies watched from the wings. There was a lot of blood. A lot. Roy wasn't moving. The tiger had him in his mouth, dragging him like prey. Backstage, Chris Lawrence was already running toward the chaos. He grabbed the tiger by his neck, trying to pull him back. But Manticore was too strong, too focused. Lawrence lost his grip as the cat continued dragging Roy away. That's when Lawrence's supervisor performed the desperate maneuver that saved Roy's life. Straddling the massive tiger, he used fish hooking, jamming his fingers into Manticore's mouth, forcing the cat to bite his own tongue. The pain was immediate. Manticore's jaws flew open. Roy's bloodied body dropped like a discarded toy. Horrified stagehands appeared with fire extinguishers, spraying the tiger with foam. When that didn't work, they struck him with the metal canisters. Finally, Manticore retreated to his cage. As paramedics rushed to Roy's side, he whispered words that defined his character. Don't shoot the cat. Even dying, even betrayed by the animal he loved like a son, Roy's first concern was protecting the creature that had nearly killed him. The ambulance ride was a desperate race against time. Roy was hemorrhaging blood, his breathing labored, pulse barely detectable. In the emergency room, trauma surgeons faced injuries unlike anything they had seen. Manticore's fangs had torn through Roy's jugular vein, creating massive internal bleeding. His windpipe was crushed, but most critically, the attack had triggered a massive stroke. The damage was extensive, a surgeon reported. Multiple puncture wounds, crushed vertebrae, severe blood loss, and significant brain trauma. We weren't sure he would survive the first hour. The team worked through the night. Emergency surgery to repair torn blood vessels. But the stroke was causing dangerous brain swelling. The decision was made to perform a decompressive craniectomy, removing 1/4 of Roy's skull. It was a desperate measure that would leave him permanently disfigured but might save his life. By dawn, the immediate crisis had passed. Roy was alive but barely. Unconscious, on a ventilator, his left side completely paralyzed. When he finally woke days later, the full extent of his losses became clear. The man who had commanded tigers could barely move his left arm. The performer who spoke multiple languages could barely whisper. The magician who made the impossible seem effortless now struggled with basic human functions. The hardest part, a nurse recalled, was watching him ask for Manticore. Even with his body broken, he was worried about his tiger. Almost immediately, a campaign began to reshape what had happened. The official story was radically different from the reality witnessed by 1,500 people. According to the sanitized version, Roy had suffered a stroke on stage, and Manticore had tried to drag his master to safety. The tiger wasn't a predator, but a loyal companion trying to help. Manticore saved Roy's life, became the party line. The media accepted this version, reluctant to destroy two beloved entertainers' reputations. But Chris Lawrence knew the truth, and it haunted him for 16 years. Finally, in 2019, he broke his silence. Roy's diminishing relationship with Manticore was a key factor in the attack. The official story is completely fabricated. Roy had a stroke as a result of the attack, not before it. Lawrence's revelations painted a different picture. Roy's age and changing relationship with the cats had created disaster conditions. His protocol deviation had triggered confusion in an already agitated animal. I am positive that Roy's diminishing relationship with Manticore was a key factor, Lawrence stated. People can't accept that these animals are wild and dangerous. But I was there. I saw what really happened. Within hours, producer Kenneth Feld canceled the show permanently. The most successful entertainment production in Vegas history was over. 200 cast members lost their jobs. 13 years of magic ended with a single tiger bite. The financial impact was staggering. $45 million in annual revenue gone. An entire entertainment ecosystem collapsed overnight. But the personal impact was worse. Siegfried, who had spent 44 years as Roy's partner, was suddenly alone. "It's over," he told reporters, voice breaking. "Our life's work, everything we built, it's gone. And Roy will never be the same." Manticore was retired to their private compound, where he lived until 2014, dying naturally at age 17. The tiger that ended Vegas' most famous show spent his final years as a reminder of what happens when humans forget that wild animals can never be fully tamed. Roy Horn survived, but never recovered. The stroke stole his mobility, speech, and cognitive function. He spent his remaining years in seclusion, cared for by Siegfried and medical professionals. The vibrant performer was gone forever. In 2009, they made one final appearance together, a charity event where, incredibly, they brought out another tiger. For a few minutes, the magic returned as Roy's eyes lit up, touching the animal's fur. But the moment passed, and the audience knew they had witnessed both resurrection and final goodbye. Roy died May 8, 2020, at 75 from COVID complications. Officially. But those who knew him understood he had really died 17 years earlier, in the jaws of a tiger that had once been his son. Siegfried followed 8 months later, dying of cancer at 81. The last member of the world's greatest magic duo was gone. In the end, Siegfried and Roy achieved the impossible, creating genuine magic in a skeptical world. They built an empire on the belief that love could transcend the boundaries between human and animal. For decades, that belief seemed justified. But October 3, 2003 revealed the fundamental flaw. Love cannot change nature. Trust cannot eliminate instinct. Magic cannot overcome the fact that wild animals are, and always will be, wild. Manticore didn't attack from malice. The tiger was simply being what evolution created, a predator. When stress triggered his hunting instincts, no training could override his fundamental nature. The real tragedy isn't that Roy was attacked, it's that he never stopped blaming himself for forgetting, for one moment, that the creatures he loved were not pets or children. They were tigers. Their final illusion was believing they could make the wild seem tame. It was their greatest trick and most devastating failure. On October 3, 2003, magic died in Las Vegas. It died in blood and betrayed trust. Roy Horn's final show was his most honest performance. No illusion, just the brutal truth that wild animals are wild. And sometimes love isn't enough to protect us from forgetting who we really are. The curtain fell. The magic ended. And somewhere in darkness, 400 pounds of perfect predator returned to his cage, carrying the final secret of an impossible dream.